For most brands, the ultimate goal of podcasting is to help build their brand, help share who they are and share their name. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing my client, Betsy O'Brien, the host of the Bet's Life podcast, all about how she uses her podcast to help build her personal brand. We talk all about community, storytelling, and staying consistent by doing things your own way. Betsy runs her show in seasons, which I think is an excellent way to start podcasting, test it out, and see what works for you. So let's get right into this episode. Welcome to the Podcast Café, where we're serving up everything you need to know about podcasting, from tips, stories, and strategies for podcasters from podcasters. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the founder of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency helping business owners, creatives, and thought leaders launch and grow their shows. Whether you're just starting out or want to take your podcast to the next level, this is the place for you. Each week, we'll dive into practical tips, actionable strategies, and of course, stories from other podcasters so that you can build up a podcast that you love and that works for your business. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe. Hey Betsy, welcome to the Podcast Cafe. I am so excited for this conversation today.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, to be back talking to you.
Yes, I know. We worked together. You know, you started your podcast with me about 2.5 or 3 years ago now, which is so crazy to think about. And I mean, I just love your episodes, your guests. So I'm excited to share that with the audience today.
Thank you. You are obligated to listen to every episode, but I always enjoy when you email me, you're like, I really loved this one, or like, this was so fun. So
yes,
it's a pleasure to work with you. And also I feel like now, you know, we have a friendship too, I would say, and a camaraderie from working together for these past, since 2022. So yeah, it's nice to talk with you today.
Yeah. Well, my first question that I'm asking all my guests, since we are in the Podcast Cafe, is what is your go-to coffee order?
I am one of those obnoxious people that drink coffee black. So
Okay.
I'm very boring. Every now and again, I will do a latte, like sometimes a vanilla latte, sometimes just regular, but I'm typically black coffee. My husband has started grinding his own beans. He's like very deep into the coffee world, and I could straight up drink instant coffee. I am not fancy about it. I just need like 1 cup a day and get it in my veins and I'm good. So I am not very particular. And yeah, I am that obnoxious person that is like, I don't need anything. I'll take it black.
No, I love that. I love that. And when I started this podcast, I thought I was going to get all these like really fun coffee orders, but most people have been like, yeah, I just drink black coffee. And I'm like, guys, I need some like flavors.
I know. I mean, when we lived in France, I was drinking a ton of espresso. I was like, this is too much coffee. But typically at home, I'm just making 1 cup a day, little French press. That's it.
I love that. I love that. Classic. Okay, amazing. Well, tell us about the Bet's Life.
So the Bet's Life started as a blog for me in 2020 in the heart of the pandemic, as we all remember. Decided to launch that, and here we are now 5 years later. So I still have the blog, and with that I started social media, Instagram. So I do a lot of content creation too, and writing. And then in 2022, for a while I had thought about it, but that was when I launched the Bet's Life podcast. So just like another branch of the brand, if you will. And I do seasons, as you know. So some have been closer together than others, just depending on what's going on in life. Like I did 2 kind of back to back when I was going to live in France for 4.5 months. And now I'm kind of starting to do it yearly, like taking that kind of time coming back in the winter. So it's been great. I'm on my 4th season, right? I have over 50 episodes and here we are.
Yeah. I mean, I love your podcast. You interview people in the Santa Barbara area. You've had some guests outside of that, but since you are in Santa Barbara and your Instagram is pretty localized. You are very well tapped into your community, have lots of connections there, work with a ton of brands in your area. So the blog and the podcast complement each other really, really well, which is why you started it, right? So
I think so. I mean, I was just meeting a lot of people. I go to a lot of events around town. Like you said, I'm involved in the community. I'm from Santa Barbara, born and raised, which is sometimes a rarity. So I know a lot of people. I have friends from preschool that I still see. I have a lot of connections in town, which has been nice. And just networking, going to events and meeting so many incredible women that I just felt very inspired. Like, we have so many creative people in this community, and especially the women I talk to, whether they've started their own business, whether they have a product they're launching. And I just thought these would be incredible conversations to have, and people that I find inspiring. Why would others not? Like, I kind of just thought it would be complimentary, as you said. And of course, I go outside of the Central Coast area too, but my thought was I really want to highlight women in my community in the Central Coast area because it's an untapped resource, and I always want to hear stories from women. I mean, it really became about storytelling too, which I do through writing, through content creation a bit as well. But it really is just another version of that, to hear someone's journey, how they started, how they got from step A to step B. So I am an extroverted person. I like having those conversations in life regardless. So having the podcast and showing that other part of my personality and featuring guests just seemed like the next stepping stone. And that was the motivation for the podcast.
Yeah. You also work with affiliate partners through your podcast and your brand. Can you share a little bit how you build these partnerships? A lot of people come to me wanting to run ads in their show or make money from their show in different ways, and it's a great way that you do that too.
Well, thank you. I actually got really good advice from someone in town that I know that had a podcast. Because when I was first thinking about starting one, I went to some of the people I knew in town. I knew a couple that had podcasts and said, I'd love to meet with you, to take you out to coffee. Like, I'm really down this rabbit hole, like I'm going to start this, and wheels were in motion, but I wanted to pick their brains. And I got really good advice from one that said, if she could go back, she's like, get your audience used to ads. And again, I already had some of these partnerships from the blog, working with brands, already having affiliate partnerships. So that was really nice for me to already have that option to do my own ads and to get my audience used to ads. Because I think if you start from the beginning and it's just me talking, even with the few ads I have, I don't do a lot of ads. People are like, oh, there's still ads. And I'm like, okay, everyone. Like, so it was good advice to do that. And I think advice I got from you of, do your own ads if you can. It's great to have outside money and to get other partnerships, but I also enjoy that if you go back and listen to episodes, those are my ads. Those are still people bringing, like, those episodes are still bringing people back to me, shopping my links, making me that extra money or passive, I guess, money, if you will. So, I think it takes time. I mean, for me, a lot of them started with social media. Those partnerships began that way as I was building my account, getting more followers, tagging companies, using their products. I mean, I tend to reach out to brands where I already love their products. I'm already shopping them regardless, and then tagging them or just saying, hey, this is a natural partnership, and that works out really well. That's been my experience for people who are interested in that. I would say there's nothing wrong with sending a DM. You may not hear back sometimes. Sometimes they say no. That's the worst thing. Otherwise, you might get interest. You might email. So I would say just try. If there's brands you're interested in, tag them, reach out, start through social media. I also have pitched with podcasting too. Some of the brands that I've heard who do advertise on podcasts, like when you're listening to different ones and you hear them, reach out to those. You know, they already understand podcasting. You know, they already have relationships with podcasters. So I've done that avenue. I've also done the local avenue of advertising local events. Because I have that of keeping in the community where I can say, yeah, most of my listeners are California. Most of my listeners are Central Coast. So if there's events going on, it's a great place to reach that demographic.
Yeah. And tapping more into that and the local community, I know a lot of people get nervous about niching down into one area, but it makes sense for the content you're posting. Like you just mentioned, the events. What was your thought process on, trying to keep it local?
It just came very naturally because I think I live in a place that lends itself to blogging and to content creation. If you will, Santa Barbara is a beautiful area and there's already a huge tourism market here and there's already an appeal. People love seeing Santa Barbara content. I also don't think that I niche down totally. I do a lot of travel. I do fashion. I've done home renovation content. I've done all kinds. But I think just my lifestyle here, people find interesting. Yeah. And I live in an area that, I go to the beach. There's beautiful sunsets and restaurants and hiking. And I'm very lucky to live in a place that, again, I think really does lend itself to photos, videos, content creation, what people aspire to in a way.
Yeah, I really like that because, of course, people can listen from anywhere. We're not tailoring your podcast in a way that it's like Santa Barbara, Santa Barbara, Santa Barbara. We use that language sometimes in the show notes or the titles or the guests that you have. Obviously, they're promoting it in the local area too. But I think overall, anyone can listen. But like you're saying, it is kind of a selling point of the podcast of, I'm in this area. Here's my cool stories. I always know when I'm editing your show and you're like talking about the beach. I'm like, oh, Betsy, I'm on my way.
No, I know. That's what I mean. Like, and because it's a beautiful area to live, there's a lot of amazing people that live here too. So again, it's like it attracts a lot of creative, wonderful people. And so that's made the pool that I'm getting guests from very interesting as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And thinking of it from a content perspective too, you already had the blog posts. You were doing that for 2 years before you started the podcast. How do you repurpose the podcast to give you more content? You post all the time on social media. You post on your blog frequently. How was the podcast just like an extra content point for you?
Well, something I really thought about when I wanted to start the podcast was, okay, with the blog, people are seeing photos, they're seeing videos. I make some funny content there. They get an aspect of my personality that way. And then I was doing a lot of writing. I have a lot of blog posts. I think I have like over 100 blog posts. So people can get an aspect of my personality through my writing. That's a different voice, right? So I had these aspects and facets of my character, I thought, or of my personality. But as anyone knows who's close to me, like I'm a big phone talker. Like I love having conversations. I'm chatty. My parents are Midwestern. Like that's just another side of me. And I thought through audio, people could really get to know me too. Because pictures only tell so much. Writing only tells so much. And I thought this was kind of the next thing to really flesh out who I am as a person and who I am behind the brand, right? Like my whole brand, The Bets Life, is based on me. It's based on lifestyle. So that was the missing component for me, and something I've heard from my friends and people who know me well are like, when you started the podcast, it was so fun because I think people really get to know you in a different way through listening to your episodes, and especially through my solo episodes. As you know, I have one coming out where I answer the question that I ask all guests, how do you live your best life? And I did an entire episode that's coming out soon. And that was so fun. And I'm like, some people may not know a lot about me. Like they're still learning. I'm 4 seasons in and there's still more to give and learn. So it really was about building this whole picture. And I think it lends itself because people can find me, you know, they can find the podcast through social media. They can find my social media through the podcast. They can find my website through, you know, it's like an interconnection. Like everything is branched off in a way. So some people may find out about the podcast before they even find me on social media. Some people may find my writing. So I just feel like it's a different way to market yourself, essentially. Right. Or to have people, again, find what, and I know people out there who offer courses, who offer, you know, any way you're getting people to find you and discover aspects of your business is fantastic. So it's just another avenue for that.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, the solo episodes, and that solo episode will be up by the time this episode's out, so I'll put it in the show notes for people to listen. When I was editing that, I was cracking up because I was like, Betsy, all of these things I do too. I can tell we're both earth signs.
I know, I love that. Yes, Virgo. You know I'm a Virgo.
Yes, I'm a Taurus, so both earth signs. But speaking to those solo episodes, a lot of people get nervous about recording solo episodes. I know that when I first started doing solo episodes years ago, I would like not look at the screen and it was just like awkward. But in 2025, I've seen the shift of people buying differently. They want to connect with people differently. There used to be a time where someone could post on their story and make sales from their podcast, or, you know, build trust. And I think influencers still can do that with, you know, shopping links and stuff like that. If it looks good on the influencer, they'll buy it. But there is a longer buying process now. So building trust with your audience through the solo episodes, I think, is more important now than ever. So you do a guest episode and then a solo episode and flip back and forth throughout the whole season, which you said was like 15-ish episodes. Mm-hmm. How do you plan the solo episodes? Because since you do just do seasons, you have a great opportunity to really curate it.
Well, as you know, I try to be ahead and I'm very organized with it. I just have to be organized, and that's something in podcasting that's a hill I will die on. That if you're going to start a podcast, I think you have to be pretty organized. You have to see the full picture, be able to plan out, of course, so that you're not scrambling or that you aren't exhausted because you're doing something the day before or your guest canceled and you're like, you know, shit out of luck. So I'm very organized. I plan out year round in my notes app on my phone. I keep a list. So I'll keep a list of solo episode ideas. Like if I'm thinking about something, I read an article and I'm like, oh, that would be great to talk about in the podcast, I'll write it down. Same thing with guests. All year round, if I'm out and about and I meet someone, I'm like, oh, let me write them down. When I'm going to reach out to guests, they would be a great option. So I'm always kind of thinking about it and keeping that list so that when I get to the season I'm starting to record, I already have some ideas. I'm not just sitting there trying to come up with something time after time. And the season works really well for me. As I've told you, I can never do 52 weeks. Other than you, and am a one-woman show, and it's just a lot to manage and take on, and it's 5 months of my life where this is the primary thing I'm working on with the podcast. So seasons for me, that has worked really well, and that's sustainable for me because I know that I can commit to an episode a week for 15 weeks. Yeah. I think the danger is when people start saying like, oh, I'm going to do 2 a month and then 1 a month and then 1 a quarter. Like, you know, you've seen it. It's a slippery slope. Oh, yeah. So that's what I can commit to.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I know Betsy's amazing. I'm so lucky to work with her. I just have to pop in here and talk about my new offer, which is called the Espresso Series. It is a 5 to 10 episode curated series where I help you bring a podcast to life that you don't have to run for the rest of your life. It could just stop at the 10 episodes. There's an audience that will trust you just by listening to you. There's an audience that loves reading. There's an audience that loves social media. But really, the trust happens when your business has a binge-worthy podcast. So if you want more details on the Espresso series, send me a message. Just send me the word espresso via email or on social media. All the links are in the show notes. And I would love to help you bring a podcast to life. Podcasting is incredible. and I want it to work for you. So that's why I'm so excited to be offering the Espresso series. I like that because I think consistency is what so many people struggle with. And you're right. They will start with, I have a client that does 8 episodes a month, okay, all year round.
Wow.
And she can do that because she has, like, that's just like the backbone of her business, really. But then I have other clients that can do 1 a month, and that's what's sustainable for them. Like 1 a month, 12 a year, like that's all they can do. There's no right or wrong in between. Of course, growth comes faster when you do more, but also growth comes when you're consistent. So the seasons, I think, is something that a lot of people should think about if podcasting feels intimidating to them, because, you know, you could have started and you could have loved it and you could have went, okay, I'm going to do this year round. Or like you did, you started it, you're like, this feels good, I'm going to do this. So you have content still year round. Just because you're putting out 12 episodes doesn't mean that you can't promote it later, you know?
Right. And I like the momentum. I still find that, you know, doing 15, like I said, it's still like 4 months. It's still a lot of time. So you still have the momentum of people know what to expect and what they're getting. I'm just a big, with any audience, whether you blog, I am a big, if you say you're going to deliver something, you better deliver it. Because if you say, oh, I'm starting this podcast, I'm going to do this weekly, and then you start tapering off and again, if there's life, things come up, you can communicate that. But I mean, in the sense that if people start kind of to doubt you, or they don't know what you're doing, or they're like, oh, now there's radio silence, what's going on? I just don't think that bodes well for your audience and for that relationship, because if I just randomly every so often threw up a podcast episode, people might be like, oh, okay, but like they don't know when to expect it, right? Or they don't know, you know, if I said, okay, it's going to be on Tuesdays, and then I start like randomly doing Thursdays, they might be like, what's going on here? You know, so I'm a big like, whatever you can do and like fulfill that promise, like it has to work for you, essentially. Like that woman that does 8 episodes a month, that's amazing. That's not for me.
Right.
But right now, Seasons has been a wonderful option for me. And yeah, I think it can really work for other people if they know they can take a chunk of their year and just focus on that, as opposed to doing it year round.
Yeah, I love that. And I think more people should see that as an option. So I'm glad that we're talking about that today. The other thing you do really well that I want to touch on is the way that you research your episodes. You are big on the research. You have in the show notes, you always put like the links, the where you got the stats from. I think that positions you as like a trustworthy expert, because if you are, you know, saying these stats and you can say where they were from, people can go and check them out. So tell us more about your research.
Well, thank you, because that is a pride point for me. And that's some of the behind the scenes that I think people don't always realize with podcasting. Like, you know, I think the thought, if you don't podcast or you have no background in it, is like, oh, you just get a microphone and you talk for 30 minutes, like easy peasy, right? You know, like I feel like people are like, oh, I could do that. And I'm not saying it's the hardest thing, but like it does take a lot of work. A lot of planning and time does go into every episode, and thoughtfulness, of course. And yeah, I do like to do my research. I'm a fact person. I like a good stat. It's not super heavy on that because I want it to be organic as well. What I talk about, I kind of have bullet points. I'm not writing out everything I'm talking about for an episode, of course. But I think if you're going to talk about something, yeah, you should have done some research. Like there should be some background information. I can give you my opinion on stuff, of course, which I do, and I can give my backstories and experiences, but I think there is a level of credibility that goes into showing you've done some research. I'm big on researching my guests. You know, I always look at everything I can find. I've gotten a little bit looser with my intros, but I used to write out every intro because a lot of times people wouldn't have a bio, and so I'd be doing that. And I customize every question I do. So I'm really tailoring my questions to the specific guest. And I think that does make for better interviews. And I always want to go in more prepared than not. I mean, I can't imagine for me if I just like rolled out of bed and went into it, that wouldn't work for me. And I don't think you'd get as good of episodes. You wouldn't get as much meat out of those or really get deeper in the conversations. And I think the audience knows. I'm sure you all have listened to an episode for an interviewer where you're like, oh, they don't know anything about this person. They've never watched the show. They don't know their social media. They've never read the book. Like, and sometimes you can't do everything, right? I haven't read every book of every guest that's come on my show, but like just doing some background research, seeing what you can find, you know, reading some articles, looking through their bio, their website, their social media, like the stuff you can do, I think you should, because it's going to, like I said, result in a more successful and interesting episode.
I agree. And you're getting people's time, their undivided time and attention when they're listening to your podcast. Like, make it worth their time. Make it worth the effort that you're putting into it too. I always see on TikTok, I get this ad for the shirt that says like ban male podcasts. I don't know if you've ever seen it. But
no,
it's
that's funny.
I'm like, should I order one? But I think like the whole thing with that is it's not about male podcasters. It's just about people that get behind microphones and just talk about whatever without doing research. We all see the clips on TikTok. We all see the clips on Instagram of this happening. So I always think it's like respecting your guest and respecting your audience by doing the research. The people you're interviewing are awesome. They have really cool backgrounds, and highlighting that for them to your audience just makes it way more worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? And there are formats for everything, you know, like a Giggly Squad. They're kind of shooting the shit every episode, and that's works for them. It's hilarious. Like they have that good rapport. So it's not to say that that can't work or you have to always research or always have to have guests on or whatnot, but that's the way it works for me.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. No, and then when you started your podcast, obviously that's when we started working together. I know you mentioned you got coffee with, I think it was Kelsey, right?
Yeah, Kelsey was one of the people, yeah.
Yes, and so she connected us together. But I'm curious, when you went into the process, what made you decide you wanted to work with a producer like me?
Well, I had done a lot of work on my website, and I am not like a super techie person. I don't have a background in coding. I had a little bit of help with it, but in the beginning I did it myself. I have since had it revamped. I did hire someone eventually, like a couple years later, to help polish it, if you will. But I learned a lot about WordPress in the beginning. And so I did that on my own. And when it came to the podcast, I was just at a point where I was like, I'm not willing to do this again. I don't have the time. I don't want it to take me another year before I launch this. It was also a timing thing. Like, I can do this myself. I could learn how to edit audio. I could go down this road, but it's going to cost me a lot of time. And do I also want to spend my time that way? I already do a lot of other things. I already have a lot of irons in the fire. And some people, you know, hire out for their social media. I do all my social media myself. So I think there's always like, what do you like doing? What is in your control? What's worth your time? And what's worth your time to pay the money to hire someone? And for me, hiring you was like a no-brainer. And still is, because I don't want to do that part myself. I'm already doing the marketing, the recording, the scheduling. I'm already doing that on myself, like by myself. So getting you to put everything together for me, that you have that expertise in editing, just makes it so much easier on my end. And I also, to be honest, like having a third party at times too, because it's really nice. Like I can be like, hey, does that sound weird to you? Or like, do you think we should keep that in, or should we take that? And I like having your opinion that way too, as someone unbiased to the conversation. And even the clips you pull, you will select my reel clip that I use to market the podcast, which is so great. And I'm always interested in that, because I'm like, oh, I like that she's choosing the clip, and that's what she found interesting while she was editing it. So in a way, it's also because I do so much on my own, it's nice to have another person to bounce ideas off of or to have your input. And especially when you're starting out podcasting, it's really easy to be hung up on so many little things because you're going to feel cringy and you're going to just really think like, oh, how is everything going to be taken? Or I said that, or I stumbled on this. And I think it's nice to have another person like you to be like, nah, it's fine. Or like, yeah, that's not that big of a deal. Or like, I noticed it, but so it's nice to have that support too, and just someone who's a little outside of what you're doing to help you as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I'm always happy to do that for you. I love your podcast. I think it's so fun. And
it's so nice. Thank you.
Yeah, no, but honestly, the guests you have are super interesting. Your solo episodes are very interesting too. So I always feel like it's a good balance of learning things and being entertained too.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, of course. Before we get into my final few questions for you, is there anything else you want to share?
I don't really think so. I mean,
okay.
I think it just keeps getting better.
Yes.
I don't know. I think you just, now that I'm on 4 seasons and over 50 episodes, like you just get more comfortable. I feel like I have reached my stride, so to speak. Like, I think that's my advice for anyone with a podcast or starting out. Like, your first season, your first few episodes, it's going to feel daunting and it's going to feel horrific to listen to your voice and the way you talk and some of the little filler words you say, all that. And my advice for anyone is just, it gets better and you'll get more comfortable and you'll find your stride, like I said, and you'll get more comfortable with guests. So there is a learning curve, and like anything, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. I know if I went back and listened to my early interviews, I'd probably be like, oh, I would notice things, or I would know like, oh, I can tell that I'm just like focused on steering the conversation, or I should have let them explain. But like, you're going to notice things you did in the beginning that you now hopefully don't do, or you've grown. And so that's my advice, because I think it is hard to start out. And I think people do have a lot of discomfort in the beginning. I know I did. I talk about how I would sweat through my clothes those beginning first few interviews, straight up. Like, I was so nervous. And it's nice at this point that I'm always a little nervous. I always, again, want to be prepared and want to be excited for the conversation and have my energy focused on that. But I'm not as nervous about messing up, or I don't know, like that I'm not going to get it, quote, right, that it needs to be perfect.
Yeah, I love seeing that transformation from the beginning episodes to now. I always thought you were great at interviewing to begin with. Did you ever interview before the podcast? Did you ever have like for your blog or anything like that?
No, I never did. I had done some article writing, like I did writing where I interviewed people, I guess, a bit with that, or wrote a piece based on interviewing, like, a restaurant or something like that. But no, I don't have any background in journalism. I don't have any interview specific skills. Yeah.
No, I love that.
But I am pretty good at having a conversation. And like I said, I enjoy talking to people. I'm even one of those people that can deal with small talk, So I think for me, it wasn't that scary in that regard to start a podcast. Like, I'm like, Betsy, you know how to have a conversation. I'm pretty quick on my feet. I think I have a good sense of humor. I'm not super duper sensitive. Like, I think able to have a pretty well-rounded conversation. So I think that lends itself as well.
Absolutely. No, I can also have small talk. I know people hate it, but I'm like, I'd rather have small talk than sit in silence, honestly.
No, and we were so funny. One time with a few of my girlfriends, everyone was going around and people were just like, oh, I hate small talk. Like, I had to go to this event and I'm like, I can't do it all. And everyone agreed. Everyone was like, I know, I hate it. I can't stand it. And it got to me and everyone looked at me and I was like, yeah, I'm okay with it. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, of course you are. Like, you're fine. It was so funny because I realized I'm like, no, I don't have this aversion to that like a lot of other people do. So I guess that's helpful because I do a lot of social events.
Totally. Totally. No, this has been so fun. So I have a couple questions for you left. This is my rapid fire section. I used to do a very long rapid fire section, but then I can't stop talking, so I had to shorten it. But my first one for you is, what was the first podcast that you listened to or had the most impact on your life?
Okay, well, I feel like I really got involved with podcasting as a listener. What was that one that was like the serial? Remember the one that was the kind of like, it was like true crime. I guess I would just say true crime is the way. Because I remember the first time going on a road trip and listening to a couple of those that were like every episode was a new discussion about the case. And I remember getting hooked that way and realizing like for a road trip, oh my gosh, a podcast is the perfect thing. But these days I like a pop culture podcast. I like true crime still. I like some more news. Like I'm all across the board because I listen to podcasts all the time. Like if I'm home and I'm doing my makeup or folding laundry or cleaning up, I'm listening to a podcast.
Yeah. Do you have any favorites that you want to shout out?
Sure. I mean, I've listened to Juicy Scoop with Heather McDonald. I find her hilarious. I've listened to We Can Do Hard Things, the Glennon Doyle podcast. Call It Her Daddy. I have listened to a bit of Giggly Squad. Like, I'm also will pick and choose episodes. I'm not always super religious where I listen to every single episode. It depends on the guest. So it's just a variety.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm the same way. Okay, my second question for you is, what are some of your podcast listening pet peeves? Do you have any?
Of course.
Yes.
Like most people, when the audio is super, super grainy or horrible, where they're just, recording this in like a car or something or in a really open space. And I get, again, that life happens, and I have guests that I just try to tell them like what to do ahead of time to prepare for recording, and they show up and they're like, I don't know, really, like, they may not be super techie, or they may not know where their headphones are. They not, so I get it. Like, life happens, and you meet people where they're at, and you work it out. But I think sometimes I do like to have the best audio quality I can. Doesn't mean everyone needs to have a microphone, but if they do, amazing. But I think just limiting some of those outside noises and distractions, because we've all listened to podcasts where the audio is not great, or you can't really hear it, or the host and the guest are way off audio volume wise. So I find that can be distracting. I guess that would be a pet peeve.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree. Do you have any dream podcast guests?
I don't know. I mean, I live in Santa Barbara. I live in Montecito. So there's celebrities about. So, of course, like Megan Sussex, you want to come on? Gwyneth Paltrow, Katy Perry. There's
oh my gosh,
tons of people in the area that would be incredible, obviously, to have on, just from like a notoriety point of view in their career path. So I feel like, one day that would be a goal, to get some local celebrity, maybe.
I love that. Okay, season 5, here we come, right?
Yeah, I mean, they'll hear it here. They're gonna come on. It's gonna be great. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Exciting. I love that. Okay. Last 2 questions. What is your biggest piece of advice for podcasters? I know you just shared a ton, but do you have anything else that you want to share?
I think really think about who your audience is going to be when you start podcasting, and what you really want to speak about, and knowing at least 10 ideas maybe when you're getting started. I think a lot of times, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but people start podcasts because they have this idea. They're like, oh, I could do that. And then they run out of ideas pretty quickly. Like, it loses steam. So whether that's you niche down to something really specific or you keep it broader so that you have more avenues to pull from, I don't know what works for the individual person, of course, but I think really thinking about what your material can be and who your audience is so that you can keep the momentum and keep the podcast going. Because I know the stats, like most podcasts, I believe, fail after 1 or 2 seasons. They don't make it that long. So if you're in it for the long run, I think that's important to have a good idea about or to really like think deeply on before you get started. Yeah. It may seem like a very basic
No, that's
answer.
really good advice. That's really good advice. Thinking about the listener first when you're creating content, that always makes it easier.
Yeah, and how it can, I don't know, like me, I already had kind of a brand before I started, so I might be different than the average person starting one, I don't know. But I also think how it ties in, you know, for mine, it really ties into lifestyle and living your best life and advice for living your best life. So I think I think also how it can tie into the greater work of what you're doing, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. I love that. My last question for you is, what is the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself through podcasting?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, I love that. That's a really good one. What have I learned about myself? I feel like I have this pride in myself for doing it for this long, for getting to over 50 episodes. 50 was a very milestone number for me for some reason. I think just starting out, it was like, am I going to get to 50? Am I going to keep doing this? Or how many seasons am I going to do? And am I going to like this enough to keep doing if I want to keep doing this work? So I'm proud to still be here and doing this, and that people still like listening, and that I am gaining listeners. And I do think I am a good interviewer, and I get that feedback a lot. So I have some pride with that's always the best compliment, that after I get done with an interview, if the guest says like, wow, that was super easy, and that just flew by, and like that was just like having a conversation with a girlfriend or over coffee. Like those are always the best compliments I can get. And I think, again, because starting out I was nervous and maybe not super secure and like, who am I to do this? And I think getting to this point where I feel much more comfortable, and I do think I'm good at it, and I get that feedback, like that is the best for me. Like I said, that's the most wonderful compliment. And I've had that where guests who have been interviewed a lot have said like, this is one of the best interviews I've done. This was such a great experience, and like I loved coming on your podcast. And at the end of the day, that's all I ever want. I only want an environment where someone comes on the podcast and feels comfortable and feels like we're having a really fantastic conversation. Yeah. And a meaningful conversation. So
I love that.
I guess that's like a pat on the back for me, I guess.
Yes. I love it. Go Betsy.
Yeah.
Okay, Betsy, this has been so much fun. What's next for you? What's coming up? How can people come and connect with you and support you? What's going on in your life?
Well, come check out the Bets Life podcast. Follow me on Instagram at the Bets Life. Visit my website, read my writing, thebetslife.com. Come on by.
I love it. All right, I'll put all of your links in the show notes. But Betsy, this was so much fun. It's always so fun to connect with, my clients in an interview, because we're always working behind the scenes together over email, and it's fun just to catch up and have conversations. I feel like these just like make me so happy and fill up my cup.
Yay! Well, I'm so grateful for you, and working with you is such a pleasure. It's so easy, and you're so great at communicating, which I appreciate. So highly recommend.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me in the Podcast Cafe. I hope you're leaving with fresh ideas and inspiration to take your podcast to the next level. Remember, podcasting is a journey, and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to help you every step of the way. Let's connect. Be sure you follow me on Instagram at Espresso Podcast Production, or visit espressopodcastproduction.com for more tips, resources, and behind-the-scenes insights. I'd love to hear about your podcasting journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling extra generous, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more podcasters just like you find the show. Until next time, grab your coffee, keep creating, and I'll see you back here in the Podcast Café.